Banking intrusion when it comes to buying and selling gold is unfortunately becoming more and more commonplace. And I have experienced it myself with one of my banks telling me that they need a lot more information about this purchase that seems to have happened where the reference is bullion. They want to know what bullion refers to. Hilarious in its own right. But there are more and more intrusions into our everyday lives when it comes to buying and selling. And I really don't like it. And I don't like how we are all tarred and feathered as criminals and money launderers when we have gold and silver that we're just trying to stack, enjoy, and sell. Hello everybody, Backyard Bullion here, and welcome to another Precious Metal Ramble where we talk about all things precious and shiny, and of course the related topic of banking when it comes to buying and selling gold and silver, which I think is a really important one to talk about because there have been some big changes in the world of banking as it relates to buying and selling, and there's a lot more intrusion. It's not good. I've experienced a situation recently where one of my banks told me I wasn't allowed access to my money until I told them what this transaction coming in was all about, and provided a lot of extra information about it, which was not great at all. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about that, but also tell you some other examples that I've heard of sellers having issues, and of course buyers not being able to buy their precious metals from their bank when they want to. It sucks. So what can we do as stackers, sellers, buyers, collectors to help mitigate those issues when they arise? And what are the options really? Because we're faced with kind of two stark choices, trying to interact with this clunky system, which we can sometimes get very frustrated with, or perhaps just go and sell to a dealer. You know, it's a lot easier, but you get a lot less money in your pocket. So the question is, how much do you want to work for that return on your precious metals? So a lot to cover in today's video, and I'd love to know what you think down in the comment section. I know it's going to be a heated debate about the intrusion of banks. I am not a fan of it, but I also understand that they are there to try and protect customers as well as themselves, but ultimately I think it's them protecting themselves. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and don't forget to hit the thumbs up button if you are enjoying this kind of content. Let YouTube know, it does a lot to help our channel, and consider subscribing if you've enjoyed this video, because there's a good chance you'll enjoy some of the other ones that we've done already and some that we might make in the future. So, banking. Right, let's start with my little story. So this is what I would describe non-traditional bank that has done what has happened to me. I have heard traditional banks doing similar things to sellers in the past, but this one happened to me. And the hilarious thing is, it's what's called a borderless bank account. So basically, it's one of these online services. I'm not going to name the institution because I don't feel like I know enough about like anti-defamation, things like that. So I don't want to really name and shame them because I get why they do it, but I also don't like the way that they do it or why they do it. So I don't know. Anyway, the point is, I'm not going to name and shame them, but it's one of these borderless accounts. And I had a payment come in from a customer for some of my hand-poured silver. And on that reference, they put in there the order of some hand-poured silver. And it got flagged by presumably the AI bots that are the banking scrubbers that just go around looking for all of these dodgy transactions. And I got an email from this institution saying, excuse me, but we need to know a little bit more about the transaction. We recognize the word bullion in the reference. Could you please give us an indication of what this is in reference to? That was all that was put in the email. It was hilarious. So I logged on to the sort of online chat version of it, and I sent them a little bit of information about the transactions. It gave me a few extra things. I sort of saying, can you tell us who it was from, what it was for, what the value of the transaction is, etc. Can you prove this is a sale? Because this is a business borderless account, by the way. And then I put in a little note there in the chat saying that you know, it's pretty outrageous that the funds are going to be on hold for 48 hours. And I just didn't like it. It wasn't a particularly large order, it was only a couple of €100, but even so, it just really annoyed me. Now, in this online bank's credit, I had all of that information processed and the funds released within 24 hours rather than 48 hours. But it was just a bit of an intrusion. I think it's a bit of an automated system that did it rather than a human being. So yeah, it wasn't the end of the world, but I've heard worse stories from other people who have sold a lot of gold and silver. And one example was was it 6 weeks ago, a month ago, we had a massive batch of silver and gold come in from one customer. In total, it was about £76,000 worth. But in the first round of sales, we did about £38,000 worth of kilo bars and gold Britannias. And the bank that person was with, I'm not going to name that bank either because it's not my bank and it wasn't my situation, so I don't think it's fair and appropriate to do it. But to be honest, you can pretty much tar and feather any bank with this kind of practice, because I've heard it said about many different banks before. Anyway, they were very intrusive into what was happening with that particular individual, why there had been so many different transactions coming into their bank account with all of the different amount of money, and of course a large sum of money. And he just was trying to explain to them that he was liquidating some of his precious metals portfolio and therefore lots of money coming in. And they were asking him all such intrusive things like getting date of birth of the people that he was selling to, and all of these other ridiculous things about proof that he'd been contacting these people online, sharing contacts and email trails and things like that. I, as an intermediary seller, helped him as best as I could with these kind of things, but he told me at the end of the day he's going to shut that bank account as soon as it's all said and done. And he did, I believe, shut his bank account down, although, did he? I'm not entirely sure. He said he was going to tell me whether he did. I can't remember if he did. If he watches this video, I know he's a fan of my channel, then let us know privately. You don't have to do it publicly, but let us know if I'm making that up for you. I'm sorry if I am, but it was not great. It was not great at all. And I've heard plenty of examples of, on the other side, people buying precious metals and having things stopped. And indeed, when that seller was having issues with his bank about those monies coming in, they stopped any other money coming in. So we were trying to get other sales done with the batch of silver that he had, and they were being blocked. People were saying no. So it sucks. It really does. And that sucks from a customer's perspective. They don't want to go through the rigmarole of going through all of their anti-fraud checks with the banks and being told that they're going to be scammed by the banks, because that's ultimately what the banks are trying to do and say to protect themselves, not the customers. Now, there's an element of protection to the customers as well. I'm not going to ignore that, and that is good in many ways. And the ultimate thing, though, is that they're there to protect themselves. They don't want to have the liability of payout, because for those that perhaps don't know, in the United Kingdom, there has been a legislation change when it comes to banking protections for private individuals. And I think businesses as well, actually, not just private individuals. Basically, legislation has changed such that anybody who's scammed, regardless of fault, is going to be refunded by the banks. So if you get spoofed by some scammer and they convince you to send your life savings off to somebody, then you are going to be protected. Now, there's good and bad in that. There's good because it gives consumer protection, and I like that, but there's also bad because I think it actually makes people quite complacent. They go, well, if there's no risk on this, then sure, I'll take this risk because somebody online is telling me that I could double my money by just sending their cash to here, and then I'll get a cash payment out the other end. The scammers are very clever, and they know now that there are these safeguards put in place for consumers. So ultimately, they've got a free pass to try and get as much as possible from people. And it would suck to be in that position if you were scammed and then you weren't able to be paid out. But unfortunately, I think with the legislation, pretty much you're guaranteed to be able to pay out. So it means the banks are now ultra cautious and they want to just protect themselves as much as possible. And that's having a detrimental effect on the precious metal buying and selling community for just individual stackers, but also semi-business stackers. If you're a private just flipper that's doing a little bit here and there on the side, and you don't have, say, a business bank account, then you're probably going to find this happen more and more over time. Because not only are there sort of the scamming refund questions the banks are doing, but also new legislation about what they have to report to tax authorities like HMRC, where they're going to basically be saying, well, we think Joe Bloggs is trading, and maybe you should look into him about whether or not he has to pay some income tax on all of the stuff he's been buying and selling. And then the banks could be well within their rights to close your bank account down or give you notice if they think you're doing something that's not quite right. And I've had a personal experience of something close to that. When I got started, I used my personal current account for my business, and I didn't know anything about it. I was it wasn't a limited company. That's the bad one. I was just a sole trader. If you're a limited company using a personal bank account, big no-no, that's illegal. But if you're a sole trader, you can use a personal bank account for that self-employment. And often, though, it's against the terms and conditions of the bank. And I got a call from my bank going, if you could please explain why you've had, a large amount of money come in and out of your account. I thought, I'm running a business. You can't do that. And so I had to open a business account. And you go through quite a long, sort of rigorous amount of checking on that. It was very hilarious. Quick tangential ramble. When I was going through my business bank account opening process, I was asked a bunch of questions about who I would be doing business with, the kind of people I would be buying from. And at the time, I was doing a lot of business with European dealers in Estonia. And when I was explaining to the, I think, basically work experienced person that was doing my account questionnaire, he was like, oh, Estonia, could you tell me where that is? And I went, yeah, sure. Because he originally said to me, that's in Africa, isn't it, Estonia? No. That's in Scandinavia, my friend. But anyway, or Far Eastern Europe. But anyway, it's fine. We got it all sorted in the end. And of course, when you go through those few extra checks and things about what your business is about, you're less likely to have those situations. So when I, for example, have my normal UK business bank account, I've never experienced a single problem with having all of my cash come in from customers. It just goes and it lands, and I've never had any problem or kickback from the bank because we do everything above board. But if you have private accounts, then be prepared. So bringing it full circle back, why that's important for gold and silver. If you're a stacker and you've got a bunch of gold and silver and you're looking to sell, that level of intrusion might be quite off-putting. And it would be, for me, if I had not this sort of online presence and the online business that I do. If I had a bunch of gold and silver and I was looking to sell it and I put it all up for sale on the Silver Forum or Facebook or wherever it might be, and then I had 20 different people pay me, £450 for a sovereign, I would probably get a bit triggered from the bank if they were going to hold my money back and do all of these crappy, horrible things and intrude on my privacy. And so the question then comes in my mind is it worth it? Is it actually worth doing? And I don't mean worth buying the gold and silver in the first place, but worth selling on a private market. Because you could just sell it to a dealer. There are plenty of dealers out there offering really great prices. In fact, I saw an email from Atkinson's Bullion. I think I've got one of their little coin flips here. Yes, there we go. It's almost like I planned this video. Now, Atkinson's are not sponsoring today's video, but they are long-term friends of the channel, and I'll happily shout them out where possible because I got an email from their sort of newsletter saying that they're paying up to 8% over spot price on silver. So if you had a bunch of silver Britannias right now, I looked at it online, you could get £23, I think it was £23.80 at the time I looked. So it's about £2 over spot, just under, maybe £1.80 over spot, something like that. And that's actually not bad. That's not bad. If you're going to have to go online and sell them to, sell them through my service, for example, if at the same time I'd got some Britannias in, I would be looking to charge to the sort of retail customer at the other end of it about £24.50. And you then pay £1.25 an ounce to me. So you're getting about the same. And whether that's a direct sort of, I don't think it's a direct reflection of the competition that we've introduced into the market because we haven't done a great deal of business this year on those kind of things. But what it does reflect is that collectively over all of the secondary markets, the premiums have come so way down that people are buying at those prices. And so Atkinson's have to compete. They have to put their prices up on what they pay. Otherwise, they're just not going to get the volume in. And of course, that means they don't then sell as many on the other side, which is where they make a fair margin. And it's not that they will fleece their customers, but any dealer out there has, with a brick and mortar anyway, has overheads and costs to bear. So I don't begrudge them for selling some of their silver at profit. That's not what I'm saying. The point is that you could just exit as a stacker. You could take your bunch of silver Britannias and sell them very quickly and easily. For example, the 10 silver Britannias that we did for spot with Atkinson's a couple of months ago, I seem to remember that those all-in price with the VAT, 10% or 20% VAT that was on there was like 210 for 20 or something like that. It was about that. You can sell them now and make 30, 40, 50 quid profit. It's great. You can sell them directly to Atkinson's and make like 30 quid profit. You can sell them on the second-hand market yourself and maybe make 40 quid profit, 50 quid. Or you can sell them through me and make 35, 40 quid profit. Pretty cool, really. And I like that. So there's a lot of competition out there, and I think the dealers are getting more competitive when it comes to their buying prices, which is very interesting. So from a sort of anti-banking perspective, it might just be easier if you have a large quantity of stuff just to go to a dealer and sell it. So then that leads me into my final point of this video. I'm afraid it's going to be a bit of a long ramble today, so I do thank any of you who are watching to the back end of the video. If a little metric counter here, let's see who in the video is still watching. If you are, quote the serial number of this Umicore bar as part of your comment, especially the Backyard Bullion Ramblers, and it gives me an idea of just how many people are listening to my inane rambles to the back end. So what it comes down to then, if you are maybe considering just liquidating everything with a dealer, is checking what they pay best on and then stacking those things. So for example, having 1 kilo bars of silver, yeah, they don't pay as great a rate on these. So they pay, I think, around spot price or just under spot price for kilo bars, whereas, as I've just demonstrated, 8% over spot price for silver Britannias. And I don't know about Eagles, for example. You'd have to check individual websites and things. But other things like sovereigns, these things are super great in terms of liquidity and, of course, the premiums that you get from dealers. They will take these all day long because they know they can sell them all day long at the other end. A Krugerrand, for example, I don't know what Atkinson's buyback rate is on a Krugerrand right now, but I would imagine it's around the 97% mark. There's a bigger swing on that than there would be, for example, on the sovereigns, which is just more popular. So perhaps ditching things like these in favour of sovereigns would be a great idea. 1 ounce gold coins, for example, difficult to sell all in one go. You need £1,900 from one individual buyer to buy them. Sovereigns much better than that. So lots of things to consider, I think, which is interesting. And but the overall point is, if you sell to a dealer, then you don't have to worry about all this banking crap. You will just sell it to them. They've got their sort of anti-money laundering regulations that they're all in place. If you sell a large quantity to Atkinson's, I don't quite know the process, so you'll have to sort of excuse me, and I'm not going to speculate on the process, but I would imagine that there are various checks that they need to do to sell, if you have a large quantity anyway. If maybe just got one coin, probably not as many, but certainly from an ID perspective, you might well have to provide some ID to them. But it's it's easier overall. It'll be all done and dusted, and you'll get your money in your bank, and you won't have to worry about potentially blocking it, because you could sell all of this privately, but if your bank says no and you've locked your funds out for a week, and maybe you're playing hard silly buggers with the banks because you don't want to give them all of your private information about your life and what you had for breakfast yesterday morning and how that impacts your financial investments, then you might be stuck, and they might then ask you to, or they might close your account. There are definitely examples in this world of banks who've gone, actually, we don't want to do business with you anymore because we think that you are not above board. And there's certainly been some examples of that. I've seen examples of that on a very good YouTube channel called Black Belt Barrister. Big fan of them. If you haven't seen their channel, it's 500,000. They do great videos all about law. And there was a few on banking and bank accounts and how banks can close bank accounts. It's all around the time when Nigel Farage had his bank accounts closed. So yeah, very interesting situation. It would be great to know what you think, though. We've rambled on long enough now, 16 minutes. So thank you to the Backyard Bullion Ramblers for listening to the back end of the video. We really do appreciate your long-term viewership on this channel. And if you haven't subscribed yet and you're watching still, then have a long, hard think about your life choices. That's what I would recommend. But also consider subscribing, because if you've listened this far, you might want to listen to other things that we've done or will do in the future. That's it from me. All I have left to say is that the Cool Kids Club members are something else. They are super special, extra cool, and we'll see you all on the next video. Thanks, and as always, please make sure that you like, share, comment, and subscribe for more.